The world worships money. It bows to wealth, mistakes it for wisdom, calls it proof of intelligence. But Nietzsche saw through that illusion, saw that riches often mask a hollow core. Not always, but often. Because the more money you have, the easier it becomes to avoid yourself. Most people think wealth is freedom, but for many, it becomes the perfect distraction. Why face your fears when you can buy comfort? Why confront your weakness when you can outsource strength? Why develop depth when status does all the talking? Nietzsche understood. External abundance often hides internal emptiness. When all your needs are met by things, you stop needing to grow from within. You trade becoming for appearing. You become defined by what you have, not who you are. And the world enables it. It praises the flashy over the wise, the rich over the real, the influencer over the thinker. And in doing so, it creates a strange paradox. Those with the most often know themselves the least. This isn't a hatred of money, it's a warning. Because when wealth becomes your identity, you stop building character. You build an image. And the moment the image shatters, what's left? Nietzsche believed there are two types of morality, one built by those in power and one built by those beneath it. And when the rich rewrite the rules, morality becomes a mirror, reflecting not what's good, but what protects their image. He called it master morality, where might makes right and success justifies itself. If you win, you're good. If you lose, it's your fault. Kindness is weakness. Empathy is a flaw. And greed? It becomes ambition. The wealthy often adopt this mindset, not overtly, but subtly. It's in the language. If I made it, anyone can. Poor people just don't work hard enough. It sounds like confidence, but it's fear. Fear of losing the illusion that they earned everything alone. Slave morality, by contrast, comes from the oppressed. It values humility, care, sacrifice. But Nietzsche didn't idealize this either. He saw it as reactive, often built from resentment. His point wasn't to pick sides, it was to expose the machinery. When the rich define virtue, everything becomes about maintaining their position. Selfishness becomes strategy. Exploitation becomes entrepreneurship. And soon, entire systems are built around protecting the few, while blaming the many. It's not that all rich people are villains. It's that power without self-awareness corrupts, every time. Because when you control the story, you can make anything sound noble, even cruelty, even greed, especially greed. Nietzsche didn't believe suffering was a curse. He believed it was a teacher, the forge where character is built, clarity is earned, and meaning is born. And when you remove discomfort from life, you don't just remove pain, you remove growth. Wealth makes it easy to escape struggle. And that's exactly the problem. The richer you get, the easier it becomes to live padded, insulated from difficulty, from hunger, from the pressure that forces you to evolve. The body gets softer. The mind dulls. The soul forgets what it came here to do. Luxury replaces labor. And soon, even the smallest inconvenience feels unbearable. Nietzsche warned, "Comfort breeds cowardice." When life becomes too easy, people lose the will to challenge themselves. They stop seeking the truth and start curating their reality to avoid it. But strength isn't born from ease. It's forged in friction. The will to power, Nietzsche's highest ideal, comes not from owning everything, but from overcoming everything. So when wealth becomes a substitute for adversity, it also becomes a trap. Because without struggle, you might feel secure, but you'll never feel alive. Society confuses noise for insight, applause for value, wealth for wisdom, and nowhere is that more visible than in the way we glorify the rich. But Nietzsche saw through it. He knew that true greatness wasn't measured in numbers, it was measured in depth, in the strength to think independently, in the courage to live authentically, in the ability to create, not consume. And most of the rich? They aren't creators, they're curators, performers, brand managers. They've mastered the art of being seen, but not the art of being real. We mistake status for substance because the world runs on image. A carefully filtered life, a polished resume, a story of hustle and triumph. But strip away the optics and what's left? Fear, conformity, the constant pressure to maintain what they've built. Not because it's meaningful, but because it's admired. Nietzsche didn't care how much you owned. He cared whether you had the courage to be original. And that kind of courage can't be bought. It must be chosen, over and over again. So the next time you see someone celebrated for their wealth, ask yourself, do they move like someone who's free? Or just someone who's trying to look like they are? Because mediocrity in disguise is still mediocrity, even if it wears gold. Nietzsche saw the true creator as sacred, not the one who imitates, but the one who births new forms, new values, new meaning. And nothing suffocates that sacred force faster than comfort and excess. Because true creativity isn't born from having everything. It's born from needing to speak, to express, to transcend. But the richer you become, the harder it is to risk. Why challenge the system that rewards your obedience? Why create something real when replicas are safer and sell better? That's what happens when art becomes a product, when self-expression becomes a brand, when vision is filtered through market demand. The edges get smoothed, the truth gets softened. Originality dies quietly, replaced by what's profitable. Nietzsche believed creation is violent, not in the destructive sense, but in the way it breaks boundaries, defies expectation, threatens the familiar. But wealth rarely tolerates disruption. It demands stability, predictability, and worst of all, likability. And so, the artist becomes a marketer. The thinker becomes an influencer. And what was once meant to awaken now exists to entertain. When money becomes the measure of success, authenticity becomes optional. And the creative soul? It doesn't die suddenly. It starves in silence. Character is shaped by boundaries, by being told no, by facing failure and finding something deeper on the other side. But when you can buy your way through every wall, you lose the one thing Nietzsche valued most, the strength of the self. Without resistance, the will weakens. Without limits, desire rots. And when everything becomes accessible, not through effort, but through transaction, the soul forgets how to want something worth becoming. This is the silent decay that wealth enables. Not just moral decay, existential decay. You don't need to grow when you can outsource discipline. You don't need to feel when you can purchase distraction. You don't need to become when you can just consume. Nietzsche had no patience for inherited power. He believed deeply that true strength is earned, not gifted, not bought, not borrowed. Because power without effort produces ego without essence. And what looks like confidence is often just addiction to control. When you can buy anything, nothing means anything. And meaning, the very thing Nietzsche fought for, is the one thing money will never touch. Nietzsche warned us about the herd, the desperate need to belong, to be accepted, to be admired. But he also saw a more refined version of that addiction. The wealthy elite who no longer seek survival, but seek constant validation through performance. This is the will to appear, not to be, but to be seen. And nowhere is that more visible than in the rich. Every dinner, every gesture, every outfit, every carefully staged photo, all of it signals. Signals of status, of taste, of power. But underneath, fragility, fear, a hollow core wrapped in luxury. Because when your self-worth is built on how others perceive you, you become a hostage to your own reflection. You don't grow, you curate. You don't think, you posture. You don't live, you perform. Nietzsche saw this as the death of the authentic self. The moment you live for the gaze of others, you lose the freedom to be real. You become trapped in a performance that never ends, and eventually you forget there was ever anything underneath. You don't own your image, it owns you. Nietzsche never worshipped wealth. He worshipped becoming, the slow, difficult, sacred process of transforming yourself through will, through suffering, through self-overcoming. That was nobility to him, not bloodline, not bank account. The higher man, in Nietzsche's world, isn't someone who has more. He's someone who dares more, who confronts himself ruthlessly, who refuses to live by borrowed values, easy praise, or inherited truths. He doesn't seek applause, he seeks to evolve. That kind of person may never be rich, but they are rare and dangerous, in the best way. Because they've done the one thing most wealthy people avoid. They've looked into the abyss of themselves and stayed. They've faced discomfort without numbing. They've wrestled with their own contradictions, not outsourced them. That's true strength. And it can't be bought. You'll know them when you see them. not by how they dress or what they own, but by how they move, how they speak, how they never need to prove a thing. They're not loud, they're not everywhere, but when they enter the room, you feel it. Nietzsche never said money was evil. He didn't despise wealth itself. He despised what people became when they served it. There is a difference between having money and being owned by it, between using wealth to build and using it to hide. There are those who earn their riches through creation, through mastery, through force of will. They didn't chase wealth to be admired. They chased truth, vision, invention, and money followed. That kind of wealth doesn't rot the soul. It reflects it. Because when you face suffering, when you've earned power by overcoming yourself, not the market, not the algorithm, you carry it differently. You move with weight, not to be seen, but to build something real. Nietzsche respected power, not possession. He respected creation, not consumption. So yes, wealth, when earned with integrity, can be a tool. But when inherited, flaunted, or hoarded, it becomes a mirror of everything you didn't become. It's not the gold, it's who you had to become to hold it. At some point, you wake up. You look around at the perfectly curated lives, the endless performance, the desperate chase for more, and you realize it's hollow. Nietzsche saw this moment as sacred, when the masks fall, when the applause fades, when the world finally stops distracting you, and you're left with one question: who are you without the image? If the answer terrifies you, good. That's where the real work begins. Because everything they called success, the status, the lifestyle, the recognition, it means nothing if you don't know who you are without it. This is Nietzsche's final challenge: to stop chasing what looks good and start becoming what is good. Not in a moral sense, but in a real one. Deep, grounded, earned. It's not about rejecting wealth. It's about rejecting the lie that it's enough. Because you can have everything and still feel nothing. If you're ready to trade illusion for truth, to build something real in a world obsessed with image, subscribe to the channel. We don't worship noise, we study depth. And the next chapter of your evolution doesn't come with applause, it comes with fire. Let's begin.